Morning, sir.
Morning, Dent.
I hope you slept well.
Yes, thank you. Any news?
No, sir, nothing special.
I want to see Professor Donati as soon as I arrive at the school. Have the tapes of Rippon's interrogation ready. He must see for himself what the driver does and how it works.
What about your wife?
Donati's the important one. Let's wait and see his reaction first, shall we? Then we can...
Singleton? Where? Should have gone to the hospital.
No, sir,
You say they were all masked?
Yes, sir.
How many?
At least 3, and I saw a girl standing near Mr. Frederick's flat. I think she may have been the lookout.
Was she masked too?
No, sir. But I'd never recognize her again. She was just a girl like thousands of others.
They planned it well.
Yes, sir, very well.
How did Mr. Frederick react?
Sir?
Did he cry out or try to fight them off?
Well, he didn't really have much of a chance, sir. They hit him as soon as they opened the door.
Hit him hard?
Yes, sir.
What I'm trying to ask you, Dent, is whether or not you think Mr. Frederick was expecting the attack.
Expecting it, sir?
Do I have to spell it out?
No, sir. I'm quite sure he wasn't expecting it.
Good. Thank you, Dent. I'll get some plaster on that cut.
How long?
What?
Before they get here?
A few minutes, that's all.
Well, provided it's all worked all right.
You'll soon know.
Colonel Singleton wants to see you, Mrs. Frederick.
Why?
There's been some trouble, an incident.
Concerning me?
Concerning your husband. He's been kidnapped.
When?
Early this morning on his way to work.
Kidnapped by whom?
Well, that's what we'd all like to know.
You don't expect me to help, do you?
Probably not.
Do you think he's quite safe?
You mean alive?
Yes.
Well, one must presume so. No doubt there'll be a demand for a ransom of some sort.
Well, why does Colonel Singleton want to see me?
Perhaps he thinks you can throw some light on the matter.
What way?
I think you'd better ask him yourself, Mrs. Frederick.
Is that a car?
Yes, they're here. Is everything ready downstairs?
Yes, but you better stay at the window, make sure nobody's following them.
I wish I could tell you more, Miss... Come in. I say, I wish I could tell you more, but we don't know very much ourselves.
Have you no idea who it might have been?
No, excuse me. Not at the moment. Please. But whoever it was did an excellent job. Well planned, well organized, well executed.
A military operation?
Indeed. Precisely. Been meaning to ask you up for a chat. Days pass too quickly, that's the trouble.
I thought you left the chat to my husband.
No, not that sort of a chat. I wanted to see for myself what sort of a person you really are.
Why? Have there been conflicting reports?
Oh, yes, very much so. Your husband thinks you're intelligent, single-minded, and an innocent dupe of Professor Donati's rather outlandish ideas. Some people, on the other hand,
Dent.
think... Yes, Dent is one of them. Think you're disloyal, subversive, and dangerous.
Is that what you think?
Oh, I really can't tell. I imagine the truth lies somewhere between the two. You're probably intelligent, but misguided. And single-minded, but in the wrong cause.
What are you going to do about my husband?
Well, there's not very much more we
What
can...
will you do?
That depends.
On what?
On whom, not on what. Political gangsters have kidnapped your husband. It's up to them to make the next move.
Why have they taken him? Have you any idea?
Oh, yes, we know why.
Good morning. Duty room. We've got Frederick. Right. What do you want? If you execute Donati, we shall kill Frederick. Just a minute. How can we tell?
They're holding him as a hostage, Mrs. Frederick. That's why they've kidnapped him.
Told you not to hurt him.
Don't hit him unnecessarily, you said. Well, I didn't.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Frederick?
Of course he can hear you.
This will achieve nothing.
That's what you think.
We're holding you as hostage.
So I guess.
If Donati dies, then so will you.
And if he doesn't?
You'll be set free.
I must send a message.
Perhaps you'd like room service as well.
You'll stay here until some decision is made.
By whom?
By Colonel Singleton.
Please try to...
Sit there and shut up.
Which one of you is in charge of this organisation?
Nobody's in charge. We all have equal responsibility.
Yes, of course. Democracy in action.
It works.
Another voice. How many are there of you?
Enough.
Am I allowed something to drink?
What would you like?
Coffee. Black, no sugar.
I'll get it.
I must send a message to my assistant, Dent.
What a bloody nerve.
It's very important.
You must realize...
I tell you, it's very important! Please.
Quite impossible, Mr. Frederick. Out of the question.
If I am to die, how would it be?
Shot, like Sadler.
Another voice. Which one of you would do it? The Brummie? The older man? The girl? Which one is to be my executioner?
I am.
A new voice? Why you particularly?
I'm experienced in these matters.
Shooting people.
Not missing. I know how to handle a gun.
Killing me will help no one.
Killing Sadler helped no one.
That was justice.
So is this.
No, this would be murder.
You ought to know, Mr. Frederick. You've murdered enough people in your
Never
time.
like this.
What about those demonstrators who were machine-gunned in Coventry?
And the students who have been to death in Hyde Park.
They were told to disperse. They were given a chance.
That's right, like you. Your chance rests with Singleton. It depends who he thinks is more important, you or Donati.
I shall give you one more chance, Professor Donati.
To do what?
Don't waste time.
No, I mean it. I'm still not sure what you want me to do.
To confess that you were wrong.
Ah, yes.
To make a full confession in public.
And then?
Well, that's not for me to say.
Can't you give me a hint?
Restricted freedom for an indefinite period.
Restricted freedom.
It's better than execution.
Is it? Let me tell you something, Sturgis.
Is it important?
Well, I think so, yes. It's a story, a true one, apparently. A man was being examined by a doctor. There was something wrong with his chest, and it was necessary to open him up. The man got very worried. "Careful, doctor," he said, tapping his chest. "I live in there."
So?
We all of us live in different places. Some of us live in our stomachs, some in our genitals. I live in there. You take away my ideas, you take away my reason for living.
You may think that now, Professor Donati, but I think you'll feel rather differently when the firing squad raise their rifles.
Oh, yes, I don't doubt it. But that'll be fear. Not a considered, rational reaction. I prefer to make my decision now.
You know what your trouble is, don't you?
What?
Arrogance. You think you're better, braver, and cleverer than all of us.
Oh, by no means. I think my political views are more desirable than yours. And I'm probably cleverer at my own subject, but I'm certainly not braver. Quite the reverse at this moment. I'm afraid of being weak, of taking the easy course, of doing anything to avoid physical pain.
What you regard as weakness, others might consider good common sense.
Yes, but I don't. Above all, I'm afraid of betraying myself. And that I must never do.
Well, Professor Donati, let's see what we can do to persuade you.
I'm just going to see how he is.
I can't believe it, can you?
Believe what?
That we've actually done it.
Is there anything I can get you?
You could listen.
I told you to keep quiet.
Please listen.
Nothing you can say can change
How
our
can you
minds.
be so sure?
The situation has
Something
passed
new
beyond
has happened,
words.
something unexpected. Please listen.
All right, very well.
You've heard of the photic driver?
Yes.
They're using it now for individual interrogation.
They?
We, headquarters.
Since when?
The last month or so.
Why tell me?
Well, nobody knew. It was top security, but Michael found out. Donati found out.
He didn't tell us.
He didn't want to. He knew what your reaction would be. He wanted to avoid a bloodbath.
Prove it.
I can't.
But why should I believe you?
Look, you've got to. I need help.
To do what?
Donati never discovered the source of his information. I think it was leaked deliberately.
By who?
That's what I want to find out. I want you to contact my assistant, Dent.
Why?
Because if that information was leaked deliberately, there's only one person who could have done it. Colonel Singleton himself.
For what purpose?
It's difficult to say.
You must have some idea.
Yes, well, I might be wrong.
If our people had been told about this use of the driver, if there'd been reprisals, if the violence had escalated, Singleton would claim that the civilian executive could no longer maintain law and order. A military takeover, is that what you thought?
Something like that.
Of course.
I could be wrong.
But if Dent confirmed your
Yes, well, he may not.
It makes sense, it adds up.
Then you'll do it. You'll contact Dent.
Yes. Supposing you're right, what next?
I'm not sure.
Where would it leave you?
I'd have to inform the civilian executive.
Would they believe you?
They'd have no reason to disbelieve me.
Oh, but they would your wife.
Well, this doesn't concern Jane.
It might be a way of saving her.
They trust me.
Trust you? You put yourself in their shoes. Would you believe a man who's trying to save his wife? Would you trust a man who's married to a self-confessed terrorist? It'd be your word against Singleton's. Who's going to believe you?
It's a chance I'd have to take. There's no alternative.
There is one.
Yes, join forces with the freedom fighters, undergo some miraculous conversion, lead your hooligans to the barricade. Yes, you'd like that, wouldn't you?
It might be more honourable than being loyal to Singleton.
Rubbish would be neither more honourable nor less. It would be exactly the same thing.
Hardly.
Of course it would. The seizure of power by force.
You don't understand.
Oh, yes, but I do. You think your actions are excused because you're fighting for the people, whatever that may mean. Well, Singleton would excuse his treachery by saying that he was fighting for the country. What you're both after is power, the power to manipulate society, the power to create living conditions that are more acceptable, more desirable, more profitable for you. In actual fact, there's very little difference between either of you. The totalitarian government of the left is not so very different from a totalitarian government of the right. They're both ultimately self-destructive because they exclude the hopes and wishes of a majority of the population. If Singleton is maneuvering towards a military takeover, and we can't be sure that he is, but if he is, then his motives and yours will be exactly the same. You both think that you are right and that there can be no opposing point of view. That is why I would fight both of you with equal vigor.
What are your motives, then?
To operate efficiently. If I have an ideal, it is that ideals have no place in government. What the people want, what the country needs, is the secure strength of efficiency. Ideals are a waste of time and energy, and they always end in disillusion. Ideals frighten me. They're too impractical, too insubstantial, too seductive.
Don't worry, Mr. Frederick. I have no intention of trying to seduce you. What shall we say to Mr. Dent?
On your feet. Come on.
Wait outside. Are you in pain?
Yes.
It can only get worse.
So I'm told.
And yet you refuse to cooperate.
I don't see the point.
To prevent further suffering?
My suffering would be greater if I chose to cooperate.
I think you should know that something has happened that changes your situation here.
What?
Your friend, Paul Frederick, has been kidnapped.
When?
This morning.
How does this change my situation?
Well, the government cannot be held to ransom by a group of armed thugs. We shall call their bluff. Since this country is now on the verge of civil war, your case will be heard by a military tribunal.
You can't do that. I'm a civilian.
Such terms have been rendered meaningless by your fellow conspirators. Oh, the civilian executive have agreed that you should be regarded as a military prisoner and treated accordingly.
You plan to have me shot?
That depends.
On what you call my cooperation?
Precisely.
What happens to Paul if I die?
Surely you can guess.
For God's sake, man, you can't allow this to happen.
I can't allow the rule of force to prevail. Your death, even his, will be the lesser of two evils.
I think you want him dead.
What nonsense. The tribunal will be convened this afternoon at 4:30. You have until then to make up your mind.
May I see Jane?
Why?
I need to talk to her.
Very well, but under surveillance. Bring this man some food.
Investigate leak of information concerning use of photic driver at HQ. Seems almost certain that Colonel Singleton was responsible. Please check most urgently.
Is that all right?
Yes, that's fine. Have you got the number?
Yes.
Now, remember, it's a direct line. If Dent doesn't answer himself, ring off immediately.
How do we know it's not some sort of trick?
How could it be?
I think you're a fool to trust him.
You've got to. You must.
Why?
Well, because if Singleton is trying to play his own game...
It doesn't matter whose game he's playing. It's not ours.
Yes, but if I am right, that means that we've all been deceived. Me as much as you.
Could be important, Henry.
Yes, I think so too.
Well, for God's sake, be careful. I don't trust that bastard.
Is that Mr. Dent? I have a message for you. From Paul Frederick.
You've heard about Paul?
Yes, Singleton told me.
Seems he's taking charge.
Of what?
Everything.
Everything?
As far as we're concerned. He regards the kidnapping as an act of war, and he's persuaded the civilian executive we should be regarded as military prisoners.
But he can't do that.
Oh, yes, he can, Jane. And up to a point, he's perfectly justified. After all, we were always talking of our work in military terms.
Yes, but this is different.
No buts. Not anymore. It's all cut and dried. The battle has ceased to be a metaphorical one.
What does that mean?
Well, in immediate terms, it means I shall be tried by a military tribunal and not a civil court.
What's the difference?
Well, for one thing, the sentence will be carried out with military speed and precision. There'll be no delay.
Oh, God.
It's not a very pleasing prospect.
Do you know when he'll be tried?
this afternoon. I gather it'll be quite a simple process. I shall be accused of creating, or helping to create, an armed insurrection. I shall be given the opportunity to confess the error of my ways and to tell all that I know about the organization and personnel of our group. Now, if I refuse to do this, there can be no defense, no mitigating circumstances. I shall stand convicted of treason, and for that there can be only one sentence.
What will you do?
What do you think I should do?
I can't tell you
Please,
that.
Jane.
No.
Paul's life rests on my decision.
I know.
I must know how you feel.
I love him. I love him, but that's almost unimportant.
How can it be?
Because love cannot thrive in a vacuum. It must relate to life, to the life we'd lead together. Love isn't just something between two people, it's part of the process of living. And if the meaning and impetus of life is removed, then love cannot survive. Or if it does, it becomes selfish and barren. I don't want that, Michael. You must do what you think is right.
You know what that is.
Yes.
You pray for me, Jane. Invoke all the ancient gods of strength and courage. I'm afraid I shall weaken.
You won't. Not you. Be strong.
Did you have the call traced?
A public phone box, sir.
Yes, well, that was to be expected. I'm very grateful to you, Dent.
The caller asked me to contact the civilian executive, sir, but I thought it wiser to come direct to you.
Yes, and I'm glad you did. No point in stirring up an interdepartmental hornet's nest, particularly this time.
That's what I thought, sir.
Did the caller give any indication, any reason why I should have leaked the information about the driver?
No, sir. And it wasn't a direct accusation, merely a suggestion that the leak should be investigated.
Yes, and so it should. I mean, clearly has been a leak. Equally clear it must have come from one of two sources, Mr. Frederick or myself.
That would seem to be the implication, sir.
Well, Dent, it looks as if you've been right all along.
In what way, sir?
With regard to Paul Frederick.
Oh, yes, sir.
And I owe you a very profound apology. Should have paid more attention to your suspicions. The trouble is, I trusted the man. I trusted him completely.
Well, of course.
Well, thank you, Dent. I shall make sure your loyalty and perception do not go unrecognized.
Thank you, sir.
You don't seem very surprised, Professor.
To see you? No, I'm not.
You guessed that I was working for Colonel Singleton?
Frederick told me.
Why?
He hoped one confidence would be repaid by another.
But it wasn't.
No.
If only you would cooperate. I so hate to see a man of your caliber wasted on these half-baked revolutionary troublemakers.
Oh, they're more than that, Mr. Sharma.
In your opinion?
That's all I have to offer. Will I be given the chance to speak?
Of course you will.
But the press won't be admitted.
I gather an official statement will be issued when the tribunal's over.
Oh, yeah, and we all know what that means.
What do you expect? Anything else would be a breach of security.
No, these meaningless phrases, an official statement, a breach of security. You'd think the public would demand something better.
Why?
They're so obviously cover-ups, evasions, lies.
Yes, but the point is nobody cares. Well, some, I suppose, but not many. Most people are too busy worrying about the cost of living, or whether the wife's having it off with a milkman, or whether they can afford a new car in the spring. You, people like you, who cares what you say or what you think? The country could be run by little green men from Mars and nobody'd worry, providing they got annual increments and a bit on the side at the office party.
Do you really believe that?
Well, don't you?
No. God, no, I daren't.
It's 4 o'clock, and here are the news headlines. Security troops are still searching West London for Mr. Paul Frederick, kidnapped by terrorists earlier today. Colonel Singleton issued a statement in which he deplored the act as one of ruthless savagery and emphasized that the government would never submit to the demands of left-wing thugs bent on the destruction of our country. It's understood that Professor Donati, recently arrested on charges of terrorism and subversion, will be tried by a special tribunal this afternoon. The trade figures published today show a marked improvement, indicating that the government's economic policies are beginning to reduce the balance of payments deficit. A spokesman said that...
Give this to Colonel Singleton. It's very important. Please hurry.
I realize that in giving me the opportunity to make this statement, you are in fact giving me the chance to talk to myself in public. I realize that what I have to say will not be reported in the press, nor will it reach the ears of anyone outside this room. Nonetheless, I feel obliged to make my position quite clear. I am not, despite all the accusations that have been leveled against me, committed to the violent downfall of this government, and I have never advocated armed revolution. If the people of this country desire to be ruled by a one-party system, if they believe that democratic processes are outdated, are worn out, why then it would be wrong and foolish to fight against the tide of public opinion. In many respects, this government has achieved some notable changes in our financial, in our trading situation. It is possible that the new laws forbidding industrial action will actually be obeyed for a time. It is possible that inflation will be halted, that we will be able to restore a degree of stability to the economy. All these things are excellent. I applaud them. Or at least I would applaud them if they were not achieved at the most appalling cost. And that cost is freedom. The freedom to make mistakes, to be imperfect, to throw spanners in the works, to be bloody-minded and difficult, to enrage and annoy, to raise two fingers in the boss's face. In short, the freedom to be an individual human being. Without that, you have nothing. Without that, you can't win. We have survived because of our imperfections. We shall survive because of them. We shall survive. You will destroy yourselves. Your end will be bloody, painful, and ignominious. May it come soon.
You agree to this statement of yours being published?
Yes.
Would you agree to speak to the press and assure them that what you have to say has been freely expressed without any outside influence or coercion?
If that is what you wish.
Well then, Mrs. Frederick, I'm delighted you've decided to cooperate.
I'm not only doing this to save my husband. I want your assurance that Professor Donati will be released and all charges against him will be dropped.
I can't promise anything myself.
Why not?
I don't have the power to do so.
Then speak to the civilian executive.
I'll report to them as soon as possible.
You must feel very pleased with yourself.
Well, I'm relieved, Mrs. Frederick. Relieved that you've given me the means to put a stop to this senseless violence and... What's the matter?
Are you ill?
I feel sick. You've destroyed me.
God.
Destroyed everything I believe in. I wish to God you'd killed me before I could do this.
Mrs. Frederick's unwell. Take her to the sick bay.
Only I wasn't so weak. If only I didn't love him.
Do you wish me to contact the civilian executive, sir?
No, it's getting late. Tomorrow will do.
And Mrs. Frederick's statement?
Leave that with me for the time being.
Very well, sir.
I know I can trust you, Den.
Yes, sir, of course.
We must consider the position very carefully. Above all else, there must be no suggestion of our capitulating to the demands made by terrorists. Any sign of, what should we call it, weakness, indecision would be very damaging.
It would be disastrous,
Indeed
sir.
it would. Therefore, I'm inclined not to interfere with the tribunal's decision. Donati knew what the choice was before him. After all, he made that choice quite deliberately. What time's the execution?
8:30, sir.
Better put in an appearance. You never know, he might say something. Report directly to me.
Yes, sir. What about Mr. Frederick?
Yes. Tragic situation. What do you think he would do?
He'd never give in to blackmail, sir. I'm sure of that.
Yes, so am I. Are his parents still alive?
No, but he has a sister in New Zealand.
Fly her over. Make sure the press are well briefed. I'll do the obituary myself. See if you can rustle up any material.
Material?
Film clips and so on. We'll make it quite an occasion. Full military honours. Oh, thank you, Dent. You might as well push off now.
There must have been some reaction from Dent.
Absolutely nothing.
We rang him again.
For when?
About an hour ago. No reply.
I can't understand it.
You must have been mistaken.
You don't believe me, do you?
We've got no proof.
But it's the truth.
What if it is?
What do you mean?
You say Singleton's been up to something. So what? We all know he's a bastard. You're just saying he's a bigger bastard than you realised. So who cares? You've been on the winning side too long, Mr. Frederick. You expect too much. You expect things to happen when you snap your fingers. Not like that in the cold, hard world outside. All that matters here is survival.
Look at this.
Professor Donati appeared before a military tribunal this afternoon. He was found guilty of inciting armed resistance to the lawful government and of causing the death of several unnamed members of His Majesty's armed forces.
And its death?
No official statement has been made, but the word is it'll be tomorrow.
Squad! Present! Aim! Fire!
Tell me something. Do you believe it's right, what you're doing?
I believe we have no alternative.
Killing me will only make matters worse.
Not necessarily.
There are bound to be reprisals.
Yes?
Many of your colleagues will be arrested and executed.
Possibly.
That doesn't deter you.
It saddens me. Nothing can deter me.
Why'd you turn away from it?
Why?
I can't talk to the back of your head.
We've got nothing to talk about.
You're afraid of me. Afraid or ashamed? Which is it?
Neither.
I think it's fear.
No, I'm not afraid of you, not now, not like this. The memory of fear remains, though.
More. If you weren't still afraid, there'd be no need to hide your face.
I don't. You see, I hide nothing, unlike you, for you. You still hide behind a mask even now. Can habit be so strong?
I don't understand.
I don't suppose you do. The mask has become your face. Pretense has become reality.
What pretense? What reality? What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the self-deception that equates dictatorship with orderly government, about the mask of benevolent paternalism that hides a face of greed and cruelty.
My face?
The face of the regime you represent.
What about your self-deception?
Yes, I'm sure we all suffer from that disease.
No, you, more than most, believe me. The brave new world you seek doesn't exist. Never has. Never will.
It might.
Never.
Why not?
Because it's against human nature. Despite all the more attractive refinements of civilization, man remains an essentially selfish, avaricious, predatory animal. Oh, I agree it would be a heartwarming experience to be able to live in a world where we could act out our cherished Christian principles, but it will never happen. It's cloud cuckoo land, not a political objective.
What a poor opinion you have of yourself.
Not unduly, sir.
Oh, yes. We judge mankind by judging ourselves. Your soul must be a dark, hateful place. I'm sorry for you.
Why?
Because you're a man without ideals, without belief.
Muddled reasoning, I'm afraid. Ideals and belief are not the same thing. I do have ideals, but you probably dismiss them as reactionary prejudices because they don't happen to coincide with your own. It's a common characteristic of the left to refuse to admit the validity of any point of view but their own. As for belief, that's a different matter. I've always found it difficult to separate belief from wishful thinking. By and large, I don't have any strong belief. Certainly not one in man. If I have any belief at all, it is in the love that can exist between a man and a woman.
We should be leaving in 45 minutes.
Wait. I'd like to see a priest. Is that possible?
Do you have nothing to say?
No.
Is there anything you wish me to do?
No.
Then why did you ask to see me?
I've got to believe in something.
May God have mercy on your soul.
My wife! Tell my wife!
Tell me again.
I love you.
Darling Paul.
I'd have nothing without you.
What nonsense. That means you'd have your work. That wouldn't change.
It wouldn't mean anything without you.
I wish...
What?
I wish I believed that.
Oh, don't you?
No. You're so ambitious. So forward-looking.
Well, is that bad?
I'm not sure.
How can it be?
Can't explain.
I thought you liked ambition. I thought you admired it.
Yes, I thought so too. But I find it just a little frightening.
Oh, Jane.
I do. Truly. I'm frightened you'll become possessed by it.
By what?
By the desire to prove that you're right and everybody else is wrong.
Well, don't we all?
No, Paul. Most of us recognize our weaknesses, try to overcome them, and accept the fact that we can never be perfect. You hope for so much. Too much. Frightens me.
I've never heard such nonsense. Look, I believe in it, that's all.
Your work?
Yes. Most people don't believe in anything these days. I do. That's why you found it strange. Oh, once I believed in Father Christmas, Lucky Charms, an old man in the sky called God, surmounted by a bunch of hymn-singing seraphim. Now, I believe in my work, in the party, and in you, my darling Jane. I suppose it represents some sort of psychological need. I've got to believe in something.
What did he say?
He said, tell my wife.
Tell her what?
That's when you fired.
A man of courage, high ideals, and tireless service to his country, Paul Frederick's murder was an act of vile brutality, and demonstrates yet again, if further demonstration were necessary, that Britain stands on the brink, on the very edge of rule by terrorism and the gun. For this reason, it has been decided that the civilian executive will stand down temporarily, and that full powers of government will be given to the military authorities. Excuse me. I pledge to you tonight that we will do everything we can. We will work tirelessly and ruthlessly to stamp out the scourge of violence and civil disorder in our land. Remember Paul Frederick. Let his memory inspire us all. No doubt you think I've deceived you. Well, of course you do. It's a natural reaction. I had no choice, Mrs. Frederick. The lives of two men against the well-being of an entire country. What choice is that? Yes, I suppose I did deceive you. Then we all deceive each other constantly, countlessly every day of our lives. I believe I did the right thing. I'm not ashamed. Have they told you what will happen? There's a house. It's Georgian, I think. Hawley Grange, Worcestershire. I'm sure you'll find it very comfortable. There are 10 other guests, residents like yourself. I'm told the food is excellent and there's some fine claret in the cellar. A library, records, even a small cinema. What's more, you'll be at liberty to go where you like, talk to whom you please. Within the grounds, of course. Oh, your room is on the ground floor, so there'll be no trouble with your wheelchair. Dent will take you there. He's been collecting some clothes and knickknacks from your flat. Oh, yes, I'm sure you'll soon feel quite at home. Try to overcome your bitterness, Mrs. Frederick. I had no choice. Survival is all that matters. It's the way of the world.
The way of your world?
This is my world now. Dent will be along shortly. Have a good journey.